Just to let everybody know before we get started, this will be recorded. So if you are not feeling being recorded or saying certain things, please feel free. You don't have to participate, but thank you for being on. But we want to really make sure that people who could not be here actually hear some really important information. Really hear some.
Can you come a little closer to the mic?
Okay. Yeah. Let me do this right here. Can everybody hear me a little better now? Yeah, okay. So we wanted to let everybody know, welcome to Trusted Voices. This will be recorded, and it's not to do this for the sake of just blowing people's spot up. It's more about helping other people out that maybe could not be here. And if you notice, there's a lot of different Zooms going on throughout, not just Suffolk County and Nassau County, but throughout the world. So we want to just add to whatever's being said, but we also want to make sure it's shareable, that other people can benefit from what we're talking about today. So once again, thank you for being on the call today. And if you just came on, could you mute your phone? Oh, ladies going good. Go to speaker view. Okay. So hello everybody. Welcome to Trusted Voices of the Community. There's a right here at Echo. Okay. My name is Dr. Jarvis Watson, and I am one of the co-creators of the Trusted Voices of the Community, and I'm supported by my co-creator, Rita Fernandez, who is the Chief Diversity Officer of Suffolk County, and we are glad to have you on this call today. Okay. So today we want to talk about COVID and mental health. COVID and mental health, the journey to healing. There have been a number of things that have been happening in the community, and we wanted to really make sure that we had a chance to pause today to really catch our breath, so to speak, but also give you some tips on how to address some of these things that are coming out of COVID. And I know my mental health particularly has been challenged and attacked, and I really have to make sure that I'm checking myself on a regular basis to make sure that I'm doing okay. And so what I wanted to do is kind of give some introductions to who's going to be on the community call. Once again, this is recorded, and just want to let everybody know who just jumped on. But we have a roundtable discussion. So what we're going to do is ask a number of questions, Rita and I, to the participants. But you always have the option of asking questions on the chat. So what we can do is have conversations with some of these community members, but then if you have a question, we'll get to that after we go through a series of questions, and then you can respond to your questions. Once again, whoever's on here, we're going to actually be on mute just so we don't have any feedback. But I wanted to introduce our roundtable community members, Deron Newman, who's an entrepreneur, as well as a higher education administrator. Tanisa George, who's a graduate student from the School of Social Welfare at Stony Brook University. Crystal Harris, with the Association of Mental Health and Wellness. She is a forensic care management program analyst. I hope I'm saying that right. William Braxton, recent graduate of Stony Brook University and part of the Student African American Brotherhood, now alumni, a national organization. Lenny Carter, CEO of My True Circle, and Lenny can kind of break down what that is when he gets on. Dr. Kevin Jordan, CDO, Chief Diversity Officer, Interim Vice President for Student Affairs at Farmingdale State State College. Anne Marie Montijo, Deputy Director for Strategic Initiatives at the Association of Mental Health and Wellness. We also have Josh Point Dujor. I'm not sure if he's on yet, but he's another recent graduate. Also, he was the president of the Student African American Brotherhood while William was the vice president. So another Stony Brook grad. Congratulations to the graduates who went through some stuff to get where they are now. Dr. Zebulon Maletsky, he's on. He's a professor of Africana Studies and History at Stony Brook University. And we also have Elita White Barnes, program project director at State of Black Long Island, Osobli. Erica Deans, co-chair of Education Action Team with Osobli as well. And this is also being supported by Osobli, State of Black Long Island with the Urban League. And we want to give another shout out to Felicia Moss from Black Long Black Long Island and NAACP, but she is the one who lovingly makes these flyers at a really short period of time. So thank you, Felicia, for doing that in the clutch. And yeah, so let's get started. Today, we really wanted, like I said, today to take a pause. There's a number of the people that are on this call right now either are associated with things that are happening in the community, are leading some of the charges and doing some really great things. But as you know, this is really taking a toll on all of us right now. And really wanted to take this time to make sure that we took some time to kind of check our pulse and check our mental and spiritual capacities right now. So, and part of what all this trauma comes from, and if you ever need to even talk about things from a more collegial kind of perspective, we have the post-traumatic slavery syndrome book that I think everybody needs to pick up or borrow. This is a great book that talks about the systemic effects of trauma on us as people of color, and definitely Black folk, but slavery in America has definitely taken a toll. And we really want to be able to identify some of these things to make sure we know why what we're addressing. So I really wanted to come from a perspective of the root causes associated with systemic racism and how that kind of manifests in things like the media, the education system, health system, justice, prisons, politics, housing, and to some extent, I was talking to my wife yesterday, religion. And I really want to look at it from an intergenerational kind of perspective. We have ways that this is affecting our K-12 aged young people, and to watch your parents kind of go through some things, and they experience some things like having to learn from home and things change that way. The Generation Z, the ones that are like in college or coming out of college right now, a lot of them with the millennials are actually out there in the streets really protesting and demonstrating and really helping us understand that this is a serious time that we're living in right now. Generation X, we talked about this on the call before y'all started, really the ones who were supposed to make it but went through a lot of trauma. Like I think we were the first ones that kind of went through the driving while Black kind of era, but also going through the latchkey kids, the crack epidemic. We were going through those periods, but also the baby boomers to help us understand a little bit more about what they went through as they went through the civil rights and helping us kind of create the roadmap for us to be where we are right now. We also want to look at aspects of social determinants of health, where we work, where we play, where we live, and where we pray, but also where we grow. And for those things to be affected in adverse ways, I think it's important that we really put some light to how these things are affecting us, or how these things are being affected by what's happening throughout the nation and now throughout the world. If you haven't seen it, people even in Norway are responding to a lot of things that are happening. But today we really wanted to answer three questions. One, how are we affected by these things? The systemic racism that we see and oppression that we have in America. Number two, what can we do to heal? And healing is not just a one-time thing, it's a process. That's why, once again, give some props to my wife, who talked about should be the journey to healing. And the last part is, where can we go for support? Because I think another thing we want to touch on is that there's some resources out there that we may not know about. A lot of things that we share that we suffer in silence. But if I could just say, hey, I can refer you to somebody who may help you come and go through this. Sometimes a gesture alone just like makes people think about it. You know, sometimes you might have to ask people twice, but at least today we want to be able to give you some sources that you can kind of write down. And hopefully, whoever needs it, if you can even share things on the chat that people can just copy and paste, that would be great too. So anything that you all can provide today, in addition to what we have with our roundtable individuals, that would be great. So I want to get started with the first question, and we're going to pose this to Deron Newman. How have factors or inequities associated with COVID-19, how have they affected the mental health of Black and Brown communities within Nassau and Suffolk County? So,
definitely. Yeah. How you doing? How's everybody doing?
All right.
Yeah. I live out in, it's like end of NCF, so it's Central Islip, around the Brentwood area. And I'm also working with a lot of young students out in Medford some high school students in Medford, and also going into Plainview, things like that. So just watching, speaking to a lot of the parents, speaking to a lot of community members out there, just being able to have these conversations with them and seeing how COVID has affected them in so many different ways, where, you know, where it's job losses or some of the families have gotten sick, and just being able to understand, I guess, from an interpersonal perspective, how their needs are not being met in many different ways. Number one, when it comes to health, and number two, psychologically and mentally, where are they seeking this mental, and then how are they even going to afford it from there? It's not just also in the city where we're getting a lot of these affected areas, but when you look at the pockets of you know, people of color or Black people within Long Island, it's hitting them as well. You know, you're looking at the Wyandottes, you're looking at the Brentwoods, you're looking at the Central Islettes, you're looking at the Amityville. It's hitting them as well. And I think sometimes people kind of look at Long Island as more prosperous in certain ways, but there are those areas where our minorities are suffering from many different things as well. And when we're talking about that COVID, that's affecting them in the same way. I've been dealing with a family of 6 living in pretty much a 2-bedroom apartment. The grandmother got sick, and then the father had gotten COVID. Thank God they've gotten better from it, but just being able to deal with that, and the students coming from school but not even having a job to even help their parents with food and things like that. So I like a lot of those things are still pretty much going on. So I think one of the best things is, you know, how are we putting out the resources for them, and where are they seeking those resources from? And are those resources even available to them in certain ways? So pretty much, I think that I've reached out with them with some there's a company that my cousin was called Emerge Telehealth Staffing, and they do anxiety and depression screening online, and they also do medical stuff online and be able to give prescriptions where families are able to pay out of pocket if they don't have insurance and things like that. So just really providing some of those resources also to those Nassau and Suffolk County communities that are suffering.
You're on mute, Jarvis.
And so I was just practicing what I was going to say. But no, Deron, that was really like poignant and right on point and very thorough. Thank you for sharing that. And Deron does a lot of different things. Black entrepreneur that really works with a lot of different folk, and the resources that he shared. Deron, when you stop, I don't want you doing it while you're driving, but if you get the chance to kind of like throw that on the chat as far as that telehealth thing, that'd be great. The other person we want to hear from is Crystal Harris, who, like I said, works for the Association of Mental Health and Wellness. If you can kind of chime in on that question as well, Crystal.
Yeah, so I work at the Association for Mental Health and Wellness, and we work with a lot of individuals that have been so greatly affected by everything that's going on with the COVID, in the sense of, you know, young mothers who are, you know, home and unable to, you know, care for children that they didn't have those responsibilities for earlier because, say, they were in school and now they're trying to juggle responsibilities within the household and get the schoolwork done. We've been really having issues, even myself personally, with getting help for our children that have IEPs, so children that have special needs. We have young mothers, and we have all mothers of all, you know, different backgrounds with children at home who are supposed to be getting certain services through the school districts, and they haven't been getting them. So, you know, within myself and also my colleagues, we're calling the schools and we're advocating, and we're trying to find who's supposed to help, who's supposed to, you know, get people to get these children the services that they need. We have children that are home that don't have, you know, PT, they don't have OT, they're not getting speech services. You can't necessarily get some of those things through a Zoom or, you know, some of the visual programs that we're using now. You know, we have parents that now have to step in and become OT specialists. You know, they're not trained in those things. And they're watching videos off of YouTube to try to imitate,
Right.
children. And, you know, these things are stunting their children. And not only are they now taking care of themselves, you know, and their mental health, they're checking in with their providers telephonically. Some of them that do have those resources where they are able to connect telephonically. You know, they're able to do those things, but I see that we're having some of the same struggles is making sure that we can connect people to those resources, which is what we do in case management. We connect people to resources. We utilize ourselves because we've had that experience with being in the community, going to PSS centers, working with all of the community providers and making those lifelong connections, and now being able to tap into those resources by picking up a phone. Hey, you guys, are you working? What are you offering? And putting together that directory and being able to, you know, utilize those services and pass them along to our clients and make sure that we can get them those things that they need, because they're struggling.
Yeah, man, wow. Thank you for, you know, for what you do. And this kind of, huh?
I just wanted to add to that, you know, at the Association for Mental Health and Wellness, we've actually been doing a technology assessment of every single person that we serve, with our staff reaching out individually. And, you know, I think we assume that everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's got a tablet or a laptop or a computer, and have that connection. And we're finding that that is so not true. The lack of connectivity, you know, people are dependent upon libraries for their emails. Libraries are closed. So, you know, the lack of access that we're seeing, you know, Crystal mentioned, you know, families. I mean, so many of people in our communities of color are essential workers. They're working full time throughout all of this, having to leave the house every single day, you know, and the resources aren't necessarily there for them. You know?
Yeah, because we see similar things in higher ed as regards to like the digital divide, and to see that at the higher ed level, we know that's definitely happening K-12. But also now you talk about if we're trying to access for those who don't have it, how can they really get to it? Before it was a transportation situation. Now we also have a technology thing that I really can't even use my tablet or my cell phone in a way because of the lack of resources that are there. And Crystal, could you, for the sake of your acronyms, let people know what IEP, PT, and OT are? Yeah.
So sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. No,
they joke about this all the time in case management. We have acronyms for everything.
Yeah.
And we forget that we have to not do that. So IEP is a individualized treatment plan for children who have developmental disabilities or some sort of you know, medical issue that is affecting their learning. So we put in place for that. And PT is physical therapy, and OT is occupational therapy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Sorry
both.
about that.
So, no, it's all learning. It's all learning. So the last person we're going to kind of chime in with is our recent graduate, William Braxton. And do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
I'm good. How factors in inequity associated with COVID-19 affect the mental health of Black and Brown communities? Speaking, you know, from my perspective as like a young man, like recent graduate, I know that, you know, not everyone could necessarily, you know, afford to stay at home. You know, the bills come and they don't stop. And, you know, not everyone has also like, you know, the best home situations. I mean, I have like some friends who like kind of didn't even have like a home to return to, or some people who are like in like a small apartment with like 5+ people, and there's, you know, there's not a lot of space. And, you know, I speaking like, you know, from the psychological aspect, that must be, you know, very, very, very taxing. You know, we have all these like society pressures, and like, you know, time still moves on. You have all these things you kind of got to answer to your responsibilities. I think Crystal mentioned it with like, you know, mothers who have to like take care of their kids and work now. So it's like, it's nonstop. And like, I feel like there's a kind of like a disconnect when this whole thing started, where all these celebrities were saying like, oh, just like stay at home. It's easy. But they have all these different kind of amenities. They have like basketball courts, like weight rooms, a whole bunch of disposable income. So like staying at home from them is like a whole different story, you know? Even for me, like I live in Dix Hill, so like I'm pretty privileged. Like when I was staying at home, like when I got stir crazy, I was able to go for a walk in my nice neighborhood. I can go in my backyard and like chill on my deck and enjoy the sun. But like not everyone has the space for that. Not everyone has access to that. I didn't have to really worry much because, you know, my mom and dad both were able to maintain working, and like, you know, we have money, but not everyone has that. So I think that is like a real big thing. It's like the different situations that people have as individuals when you know, when you got to stay at home, you know. That's just my perspective.
Thank you. You know, and I think that was the thing that COVID really exposed, was like the inequities, the amount of privilege other people have, and it's not just as simple as just going back. You know, and what I talked about before was the fact that some students even want to get to college for the aspect of some of their home conditions may not be the safest, may not be the most spacious and filled with privilege. So being at a university really gives them that ascension, or gives them the opportunity to kind of get away from that. So thank you for sharing that, William, the more inside track. So Rita, you want to next? That's what I don't think Tanisha's here. So yeah.
Oh, did you say me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Am I still coming in low?
A little bit, a little bit.
Okay, let me see if I can switch it up. So, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Question 2, which we will ask Lenny Carter, Dr. Kevin Jordan, Anne Marie, and Crystal to offer their thoughts on question 2. So that is, as a result of social distancing, we have been confined to our electronic devices for some time. Within the past few months, there have been a number of triggering events that we have witnessed on social media and our news outlets that have caused adverse effects on our mental and cultural health. Although we have received notice of some accomplishments and wins, there is still a journey that we have to travel. So from a psychological and mental health perspective, can we explain how Black and Brown communities are processing these traumatic events? And we'll start with Lenny.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. This has been a process from the work that I do for all the communities that are being impacted in the time spent on social media. You know, we had Blackout Tuesday. Everyone was familiar on the call. You would see, you know, everyone, you know, could stand and show what they represent for that day. That day alone can show you the reflection of the time spent people are using on social media to represent the causes that they're for. But there's a fine line on how much is too much, right? Because we're also, as a community, going through a grieving process. It's not too simple to really watch someone pass away online. And this is one of many stories that we experience, that we see on a constant basis, all the way to the protests and the violence against the protesters and the peaceful protesters that's out there. It's overwhelming. So psychologically, mentally, and culturally, we are being impacted from all layers, and I'm seeing it, you know, show in generational growth. There are people that's done it in the 1960s, in the 1950s, that were marching and were part of the civil rights movement, that now have an opportunity to teach their grandchildren and their children the causes and what it was all about and how to stand up for your community. So treading that line and understanding how to take content in to stay informed, as well as protecting your mental health, I find to be the biggest challenge. But I do also see a lot of growth in education and knowledge on understanding the problems, where younger children, which we'll call millennials for now, didn't have an opportunity to realize the struggle. And they're the ones out there, like Jarvis said, going out there fighting, marching, and standing up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that perspective. Dr. Jordan?
Thank you for this opportunity. To answer the question directly, how are we surviving and experiencing what's going on currently? With a whole lot of difficulty. That's the reality. With much difficulty. And I thought about the question, you know, what's going on here is something I don't think that it's ever happened before, and that is just an overall perspective that the coronavirus is attacking humanity, is attacking biologically humanity, socially, okay, systematic racism is attacking humanity socially. So humanity's in the crosshairs. That's for certain. One of the things I do want to point out is that even though COVID-19 has really highlighted the gaps in all of our social systems, every last one of them, gaping gaps, gaping holes. I think it's very, very important, and this is an example, this gathering tonight, it's very, very important that we don't allow COVID-19 to expose any holes in our community resilience, because it's going to take community resilience for us to fight this. It's going to take collective resilience to fight this. And one of the ways, if we don't know what community resilience is, we need to go back in history. Okay, the civil rights movement was a perfect example of community resilience. The whole image of locked arms, resilience. Now, how do we do that? Okay, everybody on this call and everybody on any future call or any past call, we all have something we can contribute. No one can fight this by herself or himself. We have to pull our resources together. Okay, that is community resilience. Okay, I'm in higher ed, someone else may be in K through 12, someone may be in mental health or whatever. Wherever you are, you bring, I'll put it this way, you bring your little bit with my little bit, and before you know it, we have a big bit where we can sort of attack what's going on. And that is so, so important. Today, I was on calls all day long with past students of mine. One brother just called me up and said, Dr. Jordan, I remember when I took the course with you when I was working on my doctorate, and you came to mind that I needed to call you because I feel like I'm falling apart. Okay, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. But I knew what I could bring to that situation was to spend that 30 minutes on the phone with that brother and assured him, number one, you're not by yourself. And number two, I have moments of collapse myself. We chatted for about 30 minutes and he said, I feel better. I said, great, you feel better. But how are you, when you get off this phone, how are you going to make another sister or another brother feel who may be feeling what you feel and they're afraid to say it because it may be some show of weakness? We have to really bond ourselves. Community resilience is really, really important. They have this thing about COVID-19, what's it called? Herd immunity. That if enough people have it, you have some sense of resilience. It won't impact you. Well, there is a similarity. If we can bind ourselves together and we know that no one of us is by ourselves, and we can lean on somebody else, that's how we build the stamina and the strength we need to press through. We are resilient people because if we weren't, we wouldn't be on this call tonight. It's in our blood. It's genetically programmed. And we got to let that genetic program come to surface so that each one of us can see who we are, what we can do, and come together and decide this is how we are going to do it. So once again, everybody got a little bit to offer. Pull it together. I think we would be amazed at how many resources and how much strength we have to plow through. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Can I say amen to all of that? Put our little bits together. Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Anne Marie, you're on mute.
Got it. You know, you talk about there's a collective grieving process, I think, that's going on, you know, because of COVID, where, you know, it's everybody is experiencing this. But when we see basically the attacks on, you know, communities of color, I mean, every day I'm checking the statistics for my community, for Brentwood, for Wyandanch, and just kept seeing those numbers going up and going up and going up, and this devastation, as well as the personal toll and families lost, you know, due to it. You know, there is that collective grieving process. And I think, you know, you add now on top of that, the senseless murders, you know, which some people think is a new thing. And it's been going on forever. We're just finally capturing it on, you know, on cell phone cameras and videos, but it's been going on forever. And, you know, when you hear from individuals, including, you know, your own colleagues and whatnot, that they're being pulled over, they're in an agency vehicle, doing their work every single day, and they're being pulled over by the police. You know, why? Simply because of the color of their skin. They're out there doing their job. You know, people don't believe that that exists. You know, and to me, this is just, you know, adding on. COVID is just another layer that has been added on to the struggles. You know, one of the things that I have seen is just an intergenerational, interracial collective that has come together. I mean, I just spent an hour, you know, watching the news, and we're all over the country. I mean, there is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are saying, stop, enough. And they're taking a risk because of COVID. They're coming out in droves because of COVID. You know, that gives me so much hope for change, but we also have to tackle it systemically. You know, there's no way that we can continue to fight without having to break down the systems and change the systems. You know, whether that's internally within our own organizations, politically, we need to get out there and we need to do that as a collective. So to me, I'm more motivated than ever to continue to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Collective grieving, that is really all what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal, sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
So
Did you need me to
social
repeat the
media.
question, or you got it?
Yeah, sure, you can repeat it.
Okay. So it was really, you know, talking about the impact of um, the social media consumption, and explaining how Black and Brown communities are processing these traumatic events.
I think that social media has always been a way, coming from a generation who always has a cell phone in my hand, pretty much for the most part of the day. You know, we communicate how we feel through social media. Social media has become a new journal for some people. They just kind of post everything about their feelings and their emotions and the things that they're going through. And it's become a very private place for a lot of people to, you know, a public place for a lot of people to share a lot of private thoughts that they have been. So I say that social media has been good, positive, and negative, in the sense of giving people a space to actually vent their feelings and their frustrations, and also being able to get those resources out there to people that shows them that, you know, there are other people that you can connect to that can help you with this. And, you know, these folks over here can help, can connect you and help you with that. And the fact that some of these social media platforms can identify some of the things that, you know, you might be typing, or some of the things that you might be searching are able to, you know, skew advertisements in your way, skew, you know, some agencies and programs that might be able to help you. So I see that social media is definitely, you know, beneficial in that aspect, and also being able to connect with your loved ones and talk to them about these things. Because I do believe, as Dr. Jordan said, that we have to really work together. And we have learned to communicate with our friends and our families and our colleagues that we close with and that we trust. We have to learn to be able to communicate with everyone, even the folks that we don't trust, and say the things that we haven't said. And folks really need to be ready to hear things that they may not even know they may have been saying or they may have been doing. And accept, you know, everyone accept responsibility for what it is and figure out exactly where to start. Because I think now we do a lot of, you know, coming together and throwing ideas out, but no one really knows where to start. And then in this way, like Dr. Jordan said, bringing all those pieces together by just allowing people a space to just say how they feel, say what they want, is really a good start to getting those great ideas to bring together to come up with a plan to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. And people are sharing some resources in the chat too. But I think also for social media, it's like a love-hate, because it is a place for you to get information and share information. And then when you do express, you know, you're putting yourself out there for potential comments for people that maybe, you know, are attacking you basically. And then that's another little bit of trauma that we're experiencing. Um, and you have to worry about, well, you can choose to worry or not worry, but people screenshotting your posts, and then God knows where it's going to end up. And, you know, so it's definitely a platform that, yeah, it's great, but then, you know, it can keep our mental health professionals very busy as well.
I 100% agree.
Oh, yeah.
What I tell some folks, and my best friend tells me all the time, is that we got to always back to the beginning sometimes and read the program manual. In some of those, you know, places, those Facebooks and those Instagrams, they have that little button that you can report people. And when you do those things, it blocks them from being able to say anything about they can't comment on anyone else's page or do anything else. So sometimes we just gotta know the programs that we're using so that we can protect ourselves from, you know, any of that hurt or any of that, you know, frustration or that negativity that might be coming our way.
You know, one of the things, you know, in terms of social media, and I'll say media, you know, the reality is that even in the midst of this crisis, two crises, a health crisis and just a social crisis, you know, if you take a look at what the media is doing, they're making money of keeping us fearful, afraid, traumatized. That's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing, because the more they can keep us traumatized and the more they can control how we feel and what we think, okay, they are going to make money, okay, and they are going to be in control. Privilege knows nothing else but privilege. And that's what's going on. One day I woke up in the morning, because I only watch about 10 minutes of the news. I watch 10 minutes in the morning, and I watch 10 minutes at night, just to make sure the world didn't end and no one told. And one day I said, well, let me see how much more I could watch it. And I was watching channel after channel after channel, and I noticed that the more I watched, the more I became traumatized, and I had less ability to function during the day, because I was governed by what I was soaking up that someone else had the control of. Okay? So the key is, you know, at least for me, and I'll put it out there, that, you know, I had to learn, and I still have to learn how to redirect that energy, okay, into something that's positive, rather than just keep on being filled with despair and the loss of hope and everything. I said, well, what can I do to offset what I'm feeling? And it's been in my world, what works for me is when I get on the phone and I call somebody, another brother and sister, how you feeling? Let's talk.
Thank
That
you,
is
Dr.
so
Jordan.
important.
And we have there was a
Can
question
I?
in the chat about faculty in higher education looking for pointers on how to talk with students about race, racial injustice, and addressing their own biases. So if anyone has any answers or resources to that question, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah.
All right, Jarvis, over to you for question 3.
Oh, well, yeah, actually, I can put that on there when I stop talking. But you can go
Okay.
to YouTube. Has a channel, Cora Learning, CORA Learning. That's what Dr. J. Luke Wood and Dr. Frank Harris III. Really good information about equity equity practices as it relates to engaging students for faculty and student support services individuals. And thank you all for sharing all that great information and wisdom. And we're gonna kind of get to the next question, and it has a lot to do with us culturally as people of color, particularly African American, and also as we identify as Black within the diaspora of Africa. There has been and continues to be a stigma associated with mental health with the Black and many minoritized communities. And this is to the roundtable folk, Alita, Josh, Zebulon, Erica, and Duran. Do you believe that recent events have changed how we view mental health in our communities? And if you could lead off with that.
Hi, everyone. I definitely believe that there has been a shift because it's necessary. When you think about it, you know, Black and Brown people, they're realizing that coping has its limits. And despite the fact that there's been a negative stigma with mental health, we have to realize that there's only but so much we can do. And, you know, we are people that are normally able to adjust to the situation. Something happens, we adjust, we cope, and we move on because it's like it's just life. But as Anne-Marie says, there are layers that are becoming more difficult to handle. And at some point, you have to step back and take a breath. You think about the anxiety that people are already dealing with when it relates to COVID-19, and then when you have death related to it, and then it's just overwhelming. And I think about it, and I think that people are realizing that it's becoming too much. You know, you have to definitely disconnect, and that's helpful, but then there's still that need to have some professional support. And as a community in the past, it's been like, you know, you'll go to church, you pray, and the Lord will get you through it. And even when this all started, a lot of the ministers were saying, you know, we won't act in fear. We're going to have faith, and faith is great, but this is a reality that we can't deny. And I think that the fact that our religious leaders are also now becoming positive and directing people to getting mental health support, I think that's also giving it a new light in the community, because now people can see that it doesn't mean that you don't believe in the Lord if you're seeking professional mental support. It's
Right.
just that even the ministers don't know what to tell you. They're overwhelmed also because they're a limited resource. And so if they have their entire congregation coming to them, and they have to be very clear and concise on how they communicate with their parishioners, because they want people to still believe in faith and praying, but also understand that there's a need for professional help. Just like if you have an issue with your stomach, your foot, or whatever, there's a need, there are professionals out there to assist you with that. And so I hope that the stigma lifts somewhat, even during this time, if more people will be open to the possibility of going and getting some professional assistance, that it'll be opportunity for them to taste a nugget of it and then
Mm-hmm.
see the benefit of it. You know, when you think about it, you get to sit and talk to someone for 50 minutes about yourself and you're not considered rude. So I think that it's a win-win for everyone, and it's an opportunity to get a lot of things off your chest. So I'm thinking that it may not change everything completely, but I do believe that it's going to encourage more people to seek professional assistance.
Thank you for that. Mixing the counseling and the spiritual aspect of it, like it could be a yes and as opposed to a maybe this or that, you know. So I think that combination, I think, really needs to emphasize. And thank you for sharing that. I want to hear from Josh. Josh, are you in the line? Unmute yourself. Is Josh there? So Josh.
We just saw him. I don't.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna skip over Josh, and I'll hear from Dr. Zebulon Maletsky. Are you out there, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Greetings. Yes, good evening and good greetings to everybody on the call. Thank you for the question and thank you for the chance to work together in answering it. So much good information already has been said, and just dealing with this question about a stigma associated with mental health. The problem, of course, is that we've already had a stigma around mental health in the communities. And I should also just back up and explain, I'm coming, from a mixed race background, biracial experience. And I think I don't have to tell anyone on this call that we're not always the first ones to supposedly do what they say we're supposed to do in terms of getting counseling and that kind of thing. We do it differently, as someone else said, as Alita said, through the church, through community, through this call right now. And so how do we kind of connect, I guess, some of the things that we've been dealing with and going through? Mental health is certainly part of the larger effect of COVID-19 and this experience. But we also have to deal with the fact that, they say there's pre-existing conditions for COVID-19. We have pre-existing conditions in our society to be affected more deeply and more heavily by COVID-19. The crater deep divides, Brother Jarvis talked about the divides that were in place, that so many, I can tell without even asking, that folks on this call, a lot longer than myself, have been calling attention to. The digital divide, the healthcare divide, a faith divide, educational divides in how we even connect with one another. And so COVID kind of exposed all these things. We have pre-existing conditions in the community. And somebody said, I just wrote down, communities left for dead. Yeah, this is what we're looking at, a perfect storm, if I could use that term, almost of all that affects all at the same time, all of our weaknesses and areas that through no fault of our own, that we've been calling out as communities for many, many years to say we need help here. There's not enough hospitals in Bedford-Stuyvesant. There's not enough places to get health care. There's not enough child care. There's not enough education, and you're cutting education. And so one of the weird things, everyone I've talked to has a silver lining. The good part is there's hope. Everybody got, in the midst of all the sorrow and all the terrible things that have been going on, there is good. There is some hope. They're opening up COVID-19 testing centers in churches where I live in Brooklyn and teach and work, of course, at Stony Brook on the island. They're opening up opportunities. People are talking to one another again. I've spoken to Dr. Jordan that was saying, give someone a call. I've spoken to people I haven't spoken to in a long time and who needed a call. Hey, I needed a call. And so that's a big part of it. Last thing I just want to say, there's no way to disconnect, speaking of mental health, what we're seeing outside in this movement moment, which can be a good thing, a great thing for change, because it's an opportunity, it's a time. But there's no way to disconnect this coronavirus experience with what we're seeing out there. While a lot of us were at home, there was a lot of folks still out looking for stuff to do. What's happening? They weren't staying in place, not everybody. And so now here's a chance to just kind of let loose a lot of things. Now, those of us who are peaceful protesters, and I would suspect that's most folks on the call, this also can be helpful to movement. And so we're not going to curse it, but just move forward and see what we can do with this momentum, this moment. And I'm so glad, I just wanted to finish this saying, to be on this call and to be in conversation with folks who are engaged in this kind of stuff. We can win, and we can do so now. So thank you.
Make sure I took myself off mute again and say thank you, Professor Dr. Stephen Miletsky, really giving that a really well-rounded kind of perspective and how things are connected to the movement that's happening outdoors right now. Like I said, it's not just a New York thing or a Minnesota thing. This is a global thing, and I think that being mindful of what's happening with you emotionally and mentally really gives you that much more of a better perception of what's really happening, and understanding, like Dr. Jordan said, what can I do to bring my peace into it without trying to burn myself out. But also making sure like this type of work is really demanding and really stressful. So it's really important that as we out there in the movement, that we make sure that we recharge our energies, recharge our batteries, recharge our souls, because that's always at risk. I'm not sure if Erica is on the line. She is. I don't think I see her. But Devon, did you want to tap in to this conversation?
Yeah, I'll just say really quick, just kind of almost piggybacking off Dr. Miletsky, you know, me coming from a Caribbean background, you know, having these conversations, it's like non-existent. You know, you're kind of taught to just put your head down and just keep working and going through. But I think in these times, it's just really hard to ignore. I can just recall just even to last night, I received a call from my mom that, you know, my sister's a Customs Border officer in Virginia, and Agent Orange decided that he was going to call all types of forces to DC to help with the protests. That's not her job. She has nothing to do with local police in DC or anything like that. But it's almost like she's disposable to, you know, help with whatever efforts they have out there. Just being able to, you know, a Black woman out there having to, you know, deal with protests or deal with whatever things is going on, with having a Black brother who she worries about every day going outside that he could get pulled over and God forbid that he dies. It's just, it's a lot, it's a toll, and it's hard to ignore. But even, like I said, coming from a Caribbean background, really pushing the envelope now that you can't ignore these things anymore. It's a revolution and a pandemic within this racial, but it's also within the families. Now we have to talk about some things. You talk about Hispanics, who now there's a, you know, continual going back and forth of whether a Dominican or Puerto Rican thinks that they're Black, you know, and understanding that Black is a race. It's your ethnicity is Spanish, and being able to deal with that mental aspect of it, like whether they belong or they don't belong with it. So I think there's so many aspects that are being presented that are taking a toll on our thought process. And we talked about anxiety and depression and just to think about all the things that are coming about from this COVID, from the racial things that are going on right now. Right. I think it's very important to really push the envelopes with the families and talk about it. It starts from within. If you're not talking to your children, I talk to my daughter. If you're not talking to, you know, your closer family members, who else are you going to really be talking to?
Thank you, man. I think we touched on some things that, you know, once again, we don't want to talk about, but you bringing these things to light. And just talking to someone who identifies as Garifuna, we had a long conversation today out in the Bronx, and she's having that same situation where some folks don't believe that you're Black or they have African roots within them. And it's like, hello, nobody's going to ask you where you, what island you from or where you from when the police are coming to your door, as we can see. And so I think there's this more of an emphasis of making sure that we kind of break down these myths and demystify some of the things that, you know, that people think are not connected with us. Like even when COVID came out originally, they were like, well, that's not for Black folk. And that's not the case, you know. And then we see that, you know, and as you look at some of these statistics, we're getting hit the hardest because of the fact of lack of healthcare or awareness and things like that. So it's really going to the cultural roots to really have this conversation. Like, yes, this is affecting us the same way that we're affected physically, we are affected mentally. And thank you for that, Devon. Any other panelists wanted to chime in on this? Because if not, we'll just move to the next
I
portion.
think we have Josh back.
Wait, Josh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's right. Before you go, Josh, I just want to let you all know this is usually like an hour, but if you all saw it, it's like an hour and a half because we really wanted to spend a little bit more time to kind of talk about this, so don't feel like you have to run off. So sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
Okay. So hey everyone, my name is Joshua Pontejor. I'm a recent Soniver graduate, and I'm still answering the third question. So just to recap, it is there has been and continues to be a stigma associated with mental health with the Black and many minoritized communities. Do you believe that recent events have changed how we view mental health in our communities? What I find interesting is that being younger and just like using social media differently, to seeing everyone like my age on the internet, mental health has actually been something that's brought up a lot in like Generation Z, and that's something that I really appreciate because like even though we may not know like the right steps or like how to really I guess protect our mental health, we're at least talking about it and really expressing that hey, like sometimes like it's okay to feel sad and it's okay for me to not even just feel sad but tell someone else that I am feeling this way and they're going to be like willing to listen. So what I find interesting with everything that's going on in the world right now is that it's not that the conversations are different. It's more like we're not having the conversations anymore because there are so many other things that are just present and so many other things that are just like, yeah, so many other things that are present. And so like on my social media feed, it's donation links, it's ways that you could protest, ways that you could be an active citizen. And every few posts, it's always someone saying, honestly, guys, like I can't be on social media anymore because this is information overload and this is really draining on me and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to do this. And I see a lot of people retweeting it, but it's just a lot of people just coming into agreement that this is too much, but we don't know where to move on from here. And just as an individual, I think just sometimes you just got to get off your phone. Like the other night when Agent Orange tweeted when they start looting, we're gonna start a shooting. Like I read that like right before I went to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep for the next few hours. And it wasn't until the next day I realized that I cannot be on my phone like looking at social media right before bed. Like that's not a good mindset to start the next day with. And yeah, just social media just has been really draining. And I'm glad that we had these conversations or started to have the conversations in the past, but we definitely need to bring them back because as you all said, we're all feeling this. We're just not talking about how we're feeling this.
You know what? And if I could just stop right there for a second, and what you said, like when people start looting, you start shooting. What was your initial reaction to that?
Sorry. My initial reaction was genuine fear. I'm honestly terrified to see what's going to happen in the next few days, especially if he's going to be calling the military to start to have an active role in, I guess, protecting him in his bunker. Like, I don't want him to sick the military on U.S. citizens.
And I think that, thank you for sharing that and being candid with that, and be courageous to talk about that, Josh, because I think that's something that I'm always curious about, like your generation thinking about, like as you go into the workforce, like how you see our leadership, in this country and how you feel connected. And I think the fact that at this time, why is fear being instilled in you as opposed to hope? And I really want to really capture that because I think that's key. And as a Black man, for you to share that, one thing we always say in counseling is you find strength within your vulnerability. And the fact that you're showing more strength than some other joker up in that house is something to really be commended. So for you and Will to be on this call today, for you recent graduates to be there, I really appreciate your feedback on that. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. So right on, my man. This is my product right here. Him and Will. Just want to little brag a moment. All right. So, but Retha.
Okay, so we have the last sort of prepared question, and this is a roundtable is Lenny, Emery, Crystal, and Lenny. So, as it pertains to mental health, what are some solutions that communities can and have implemented to address the effects associated with the pandemic and recent tragedies? So we'll start with you, Anne-Marie. Solutions.
Education, you know, education. You know, I'm finding myself, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to share what I've learned, you know, with other people. You know, whether that be regarding all the social issues going on, as well as mental health. I mean, I've been in the mental health profession for close to 30 years, and it's ever evolving. You know, one of the things our organization does is we do trainings. We are out in the community, educating those in schools. We have also connected with faith-based communities in Amityville and elsewhere, and we've been able to do not just mental health 101 trainings, which is basically an hour to an hour and a half training, but the evidence-based mental health first aid training, which I actually just learned today is finally going to be available online. Before it was basically an 8-hour training that we've been doing, oh geez, at least for the last 5, 6, 7 years. And, you know, we have a federal grant, so we've targeted certain populations, those communities of color being one of them, veterans communities, as well as public safety. We trained, I believe it was the corrections officers, the new corrections officers. We also do a lot of work with the police, trying to, you know, educate them on mental health issues. You know, because we know, you know, the instances of individuals with serious mental illness dealing with the police is not always a good outcome as well, regardless of you know, regardless of race. But, you know, I'm a true believer in education. You know, we have a number of staff, including myself, who go out there, speak with kids, speak with adults, and it's something that, you know, we're offering virtually now. So if any community group wants, you know, this hour to hour and a half training, it's something that we can do pretty quickly and set up. The mental health first aid, because it is an evidence-based program and it goes through the National Council for Behavioral Health, we have to wait for our trainers to be trained in the new platform. But you know, we'll be out there, and I believe it's a 6-hour training, 2 hours that people do online themselves, and then a 4-hour virtual with the trainers. And, you know, our goal is to be able to bring this to communities of color. It's paramount in our, you know, our mission to be able to do this.
And people could get access to that from the website?
They can get access to it from the website. I'll put my email address in the chat box also, and they can email me, and I'll connect them with our Director of Community Education, and we'll get that set up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Crystal.
I would say engagement and engaging different organizations that they haven't utilized. So we have a lot of people that are living with mental illness that are now out and about with not having any type of providers where they can access them, because they may not have that accessibility with the internet connection or any type of telephone, so they may not be connected to providers. So we have individuals who may have case managers who they're not able to engage or connect with at this time. We have individuals that may not be able to engage or connect with their spiritual advisors or leaders. We have individuals that may not even be able to connect to, you know, their family and friends. So to be able to just speak to people and figure out a way that we can utilize the resources within our community to best assist us. So we have libraries that have, you know, been assets to us when we are, you know, things are great and things were normal the libraries were places where people with mental illness would congregate and they would hang out there. Librarians, there's plenty of times that I can call a library and just ask them, have you seen such and such? And they're, yeah, we seen them last week. There are contact, there are communication, there are eyes and ears to those clients that we can't reach, those folks that we just can't get to sometimes. So we need to be able to figure out how to utilize that when we have certain type of, emergencies, if it's weather related, if it's pandemic related, like we have now, if it's, when we have the issue that's going on with race in this world, we have to be able to utilize those small things that we may have overlooked. And pull those resources out so that we can better engage people and make sure that they get the services and they get to the treatment and they get to the people that are able to help them.
Yes, thank you. There is a certain amount of disconnection from community that you feel if like the library was your place to go for everything. So yeah. Okay, Lenny. Sorry, I won't take up too much time. Lenny.
No problem. Excellent. I think one of the things we always want to recognize and acknowledge is that mental health tends to stem from other underlying conditions culturally. There's two sides to mental health. There's the biological side where there may be a chemical imbalance, and then there's the cultural side. And some of the things we face from the cultural side, such as food, housing, as Crystal just mentioned, connectivity, as Anne-Marie just mentioned, education, transportation, all of these things play parts in how well, because sometimes you find people wanting to help others, but if they're not right financially, it's really hard to get out of that depression. No matter how much, they speak about it, they may go to groups, but it's still challenging if their financial needs aren't met or food isn't going on the table for their children. So a lot of the movement that I see in the networks that I'm in, as an entrepreneur, is people finding and working through their communities to create these solutions, checking on their seniors as an example, giving them transportation rides or paying for their rides to get them where they have to go. Providing food, my neighborhood in Brownsville, Brooklyn, there's a network of people that get together food and package it for those that are, in the food desert where the supermarkets aren't good enough to have fresh fruits and vegetables, especially with the plants closing down throughout the nation. So I want to take a moment and have everyone just really think about it's a mental health issue, but they also stem from these cultural challenges that we need to be aware of, that we can participate, donate to, and support in other ways. So myself, I have a platform by the name of True Circle, and we look into these different layers of support because we understand that we can give someone a therapist, but if these other areas of support aren't met, they're still going to face challenges getting to a better place mentally.
Thank you. I was typing. Thank you. Jarvis,
Yes.
over to you. Thank you, Lenny. And Lenny, put your org in the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And Lenny, also plug what's happening at 8:00.
Oh, absolutely. There's a Zoom chat for What's Good Brothers. There's 4 mental health professionals that are Black men that are hosting a session. It's a big deal. Men don't get together as often as they should to talk, to communicate, to share those feelings, and to have a perspective from Black men that I personally know that came up in similar situations to the people that's on this call. Struggled, fought their way through undergrad and grad school, got their degrees, and giving back to the community. So definitely check it out.
Thank you, Brother Lenny. And he's also another Stony Brook graduate. Gotta put that out there. We deep in here. All right.
Jarvis, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with what everyone has said. But I think one of the things that education is important, and of course, from what I said about community resilience, but what is equally as important? To make sure that we connect with our history, because this isn't the first time. There are many that have gone on before us that have created the current arena or the current opportunity for me to be called Dr. Jordan, you to be called Dr. Jarvis, and and all of the accomplishments of these fine people. You know, it's good to connect with our history and find out, how did those before us survive? That's the key. The Negro national anthem, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod. But it doesn't keep us from still reaching and getting to that bright, shining star. There are populations of people. One of the ways that they have survived is because they keep their children connected to their history.
Yeah.
When your history is stolen, your identity is stolen, your hope is stolen, then you move from helplessness to hopelessness, and then that's it.
I think there's a question. Thank you, because this is actually a really nice way to segue into this next question somebody just asked, and I wanted to put Dr. Bletsky on point with this. So one of the members asked, how much of these mental health issues that are weighing our community down impacted the freedom fighters and Black protesters of civil rights movements of the past?
Yeah. Wow, it's a good question, and it really does segue from Dr. Jordan's point. I had the good fortune of studying with a lot of folks who call themselves professors today, but called themselves freedom fighters yesterday. A lot of them were part of SNCC, and they're part of some of the social movements that took place in various ways. A lot of them went to Howard. And I remember, learning of someone like Ann Moody, who wrote, people remember that book, Coming of Age in Mississippi. She kind of like, everyone in the movement said, like, was a lot, was too much. In the end, she wrote the beautiful book. But her personally, her soul and what she paid for, the cost. I saw something recently, and I have to get the source, but it was, when people ask the question, or as we often say, people died so you could have the vote. You hear that so often. People died for you to have the vote, and people still shrug not everybody, but some folks say, well, and then who are these people? And I actually saw somebody put out a list. I think it was the NAACP. It was the NAACP. A list of the actual people who literally died for that particular right and were engaged in that particular kind of organizing around the vote. And the list is quite long. And some of the names are recognizable, but some of them were new to me. Many of them were new to me. Doctors, lawyers, people who couldn't get credit at the store anymore because they went on record and said, I'm going to stand up. Who made the connection with education and said, there's no way you can make it in this world without one. I don't care if they cut my credit off at the company store. I'm doing this for my children. That happened in the South, South Carolina, all over the place, as we know. So when we say these kinds of things, when people died for you to have these rights, it's not just a cliche, and it's not an exaggeration. It's a literal truth. That's just. I have to just lastly connect with Dr. Jordan's point there. And I think he said it. I won't repeat it, but that's the story. It's a story of achievement in the face of extraordinary obstacles. That's our story for America. We have made America look good so many times and saved America's sad behind, excuse my language, by helping it to live up to its own stated principles. These are things that you said you were about. We didn't come over here and say, you should be, all men are created equal. You said that, right? It's like Dr. Martin Luther King said, if we're wrong, then the Constitution is wrong. If we're wrong, then the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we're wrong, then God Almighty himself is wrong. And so we're right. And we actually have saved America and helped America and never get the credit that's really deserved. And the final sacrifice, the evidence of that is the mental. Some people didn't make it. Some people didn't make it to live. And some people, even who did live through it, are mentally scarred from it to connect with our conversation of mental health.
It sounds like one of your lectures, Doc, but I think that's more of a sermon between both doctors. Thank you for emphasizing that. Thank you, whoever asked that question as well. And because I think to put the historical context of this is not the first time we've been through this, and really kind of give homage to those who came before us, and but also understand like how do they recharge, how do they reinvest into themselves, into their families, because you know what, if they're in the movement, so are their families. So to really kind of put these things in really humanistic terms, which I think sometimes we get dehumanized on media and all these other places, but to really come back to how are we taking care of each other? And it's actually kind of stepping back to what Dr. Jordan was talking about, again, this whole collective community perspective that we all got to have. This community resilience is key, and but also making sure that we have time to kind of catch our breath. And speaking of that, I wanted to make sure that we in the last portion of this to make sure we had the opportunity to share some resources that people can go to. I think it's been kind of peppered throughout the conversation. If there's some resources that we can share, and I'm particularly talking to Anne-Marie, Lenny, Crystal, Deswa, if you have anything that you can put in. If I didn't call your name, if you know there's a resource, if you want to put it on there again, please put it in the chat. But if Anne-Marie can kind of lead that with any resources that you have that could help us out in these times and where we can go.
Thanks, Jarvis. We are one of, I believe it's 28 mental health associations in New York State, and I don't even know how many across the country. For those of you who don't know, we're an organization that actually are 3 organizations that came into one about 6 or 7 years ago. Something that was called Clubhouse of Suffolk. The Mental Health Association of Suffolk County and Suffolk County United Veterans. We kind of all came together about 6 or 7 years ago, and obviously had to rebrand because none of those names kind of fit us. So we became the Association for Mental Health and Wellness. And one of our, tasks is advocacy, is education. We provide services. Crystal can probably give you better information regarding our adult care management program. But we touch thousands of lives every year in Suffolk County. We're going to continue to do whatever we can to continue to reach out to the communities that need us the most. Again, Crystal, because you're out in the field, you're out in, different environments than I am. You can kind of speak more to that, but I put it in the chat box, but we have a helpline, which is not a crisis line, but it is a helpline, and the numbers there. I also put in some other resources. There's also a Facebook group called Long Island Clinicians of Color. That's always a good resource. If anybody needs, I put my contact information in there. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And if I can't answer it, I'll find somebody who can answer your questions.
Thank you. Lenny. You got to roll soon. Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
The number of resources that's out there, a lot of them that I work with are digital. We're in a digital space, a digital time with coronavirus and everything else. But, some websites, Therapy for Black Girls is a great directory, a great mental health resources. She has a podcast, Dr. Joy. She's phenomenal at what she does. A good friend of mine as well. So she does great work. As Anne-Marie mentioned, Long Island Clinicians of Color is a great group and resource, but they don't know if it's a private group, if people that are looking for services are part of it, or it's a professional group. But if you guys want to hit me up, I can always share the listing that they have of some awesome clinicians out here in Long Island. So they're phenomenal as well. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it, but the key is that if you go to my social media, L Carter NY, LCARTER NY, there's a ton of resources there in my business as well at My True Circle, MYTRUCIRCLE. Social handle is there, the website is there as well, but there's a number of resources, events, clinicians, matching services that we provide and share with folks out there. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any trouble or need some support.
Thanks, Lenny. This is great. This is really to kind of have this vision kind of really materialize in front of us is great. I think Melissa Holly. Oh,
can I just
sorry.
say one thing? Because
Go ahead, man.
I went to your social media, Lenny, and I see the flyer for the What's Good Bro, and I'm like, wow, look at these Black men licensed therapists. I don't think I've ever met one. This is amazing.
Wow. Wow. And I'm in a network of hundreds.
Thank you.
That's just 4 of the hundreds that we're a part of. And once again, you know, we all doing some great work, and the conversations I've been having recently, I'm excited about the future.
Right. And thank you, man. Yeah, thank you just for spreading that. Once again, we own the narrative tonight and for moving forward. So thank you. Melissa Holly, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. Thank you for letting me join this. There's a lot of amazing people on here. I'll make it quick, but my question is to anyone who can answer is, what do you do when you are the provider of, services, but you also come from the same background, you come from the same community, you share some of the same struggles as your clients, and as much as, you'd like to help them, and that really goes with counseling and, resources, you also are in the same, not the same, but almost in a like position to where it's like, I get that this is happening, but, they don't know that I'm also going through that too. And I really want to focus on the whole mental health aspect because of, being in that same environment, the resources are limited even for community-based providers. So I'm just curious, what resources are there for us?
I'll pose that to the panelists or the round table. I'll jump in first, just to piggyback on what I said a minute ago. Long Island Clinicians of Color, is the point of them being created was to create a support group. Healers need support as well. Sometimes we need to even find a professional or therapist that can guide us through our challenges, and servicing others when our glass isn't, is halfway full is not going to do us justice or our client or the folks we're working with justice. So one of the keys is building and finding a tribe, having a support system. I'm a firm believer in. So finding people that you work with, that are colleagues, whether they work with you or at a distance and do similar work, find folks that fit your tribe, connect with them. But also self-care is a big tool as well. We spend a lot of time in giving the best advice to other people on how to deal with their situations. And a lot of times for myself, I don't take my own advice. So sometimes I have to take a step back, look at the self-care tools that I'm sharing with other people, look at what am I doing? Am I journaling? Am I exercising? Am I eating right? What other things can I do so I can show up wholly to my client or the people that I'm working with? Real talk. Anybody else want to add?
And I'll kind of piggyback off of what Lenny was saying as well, is also just making sure that when you're talking to clients, a lot of times in my field, they could be going through some of the same things that we're going through. And me personally, I like to keep it real. When they're talking about some of the things that they're going through, and they're saying, Crystal, I need to be able to get this done for my child because they have needs. I, as a mother, understand that. I know that it's a struggle because I'm also working from home, and I'm also a mother of children who need me. So we talk about that and we relate, because guess what? I'm on the phone with her, and a client and my children are running around, and you can hear them, so we kind of talk about that. So talk about those things that you're struggling with, talk about those differences, because although you may be going through something as a clinician and a client may be going through something as a client, those shared experiences, we can definitely live through those together and not cross boundaries where it's gonna mess up that relationship. But also it will enhance it because it'll help build that trust, it'll help with that engagement, and they'll rely on you a little bit more because we're real, we're people, we have issues too. We don't you know, always have a chance to not come across as perfect or not come across as the clinician or, you know, not be that person of some sort of authority. You know, we're real, we're here, we're going through the pandemic just like you are, you know, we're brown and we're being discriminated against just like you are. And this is how I feel. So just kind of, you know, be real to yourself and kind of connect on that level.
Definitely, thank you.
You know, Melissa, the integrity of our stories that we share with one another is a great connector and it's a great way to really free your soul and know that you're not alone.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
I can attest to that because Dr. Jordan was always on the speed dial with me. I'm like, what do I do? You know, because it's really, you can't imagine even in higher ed, like you look up, is you probably looking back at yourself because there's really not a lot of us at the top. So to really have people like Dr. Jordan and all these other folk that are in the struggle with you that can give that wisdom as well, it's really valuable. So, and you got us now, Trusted Voices. So this is like the last time.
We're all suffering from racial battle fatigue.
Yes, absolutely.
Right on.
Absolutely.
So it seems like we got about 2 minutes left. So before I roll out, I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And also, we want to let you all know in about 2 weeks, we will have another Trusted Voices conversation on the LGBTQ plus community and how they're kind of surviving through COVID as well. So that's on June 18th at 6 p.m. And we will make sure we update this on our Sobri website. And Alita and I are actually working on making sure we get these other videos uploaded to there as well. But you can also go to Trusted Voices of the Community on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And same title as what we're doing right now. And we have the first 2 videos up there as we speak. And we really want to make sure this one goes up as soon as possible because I think this is something that we all need, as I can see from people still on the channel now. I also wanted to make sure that I gave some props to the people who are on the roundtable. So thank you, Devon. Tanisha could not be here. Crystal Harris, William Braxton, Lenny Carter, Dr. Kevin Jordan, Anne Marie Montijo, Josh Point du Jour, Dr. Zebulon Miletsky, Alita White Barnes, Erica Deans, who just jumped on. I saw you, Erica. Erica had to work, you know, doing what she had to do. Definitely my home skillet, Retha, for this. I know you've been making it happen, and thank you for just always being there. But I also wanted to roll out by having a moment of silence for those who have been affected by COVID-19, as well as say the names of those who have the nameless people who've been lost to police violence as well. So everybody can just kind of get a moment of silence, and I'll say 3 names while we get quiet. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, those lost to COVID. Definitely pray for our sister Teresa Sanders. Those lost to police brutality. Those lost to domestic violence. We pray for you. We pray for your families. Hopefully we pray for each other. Thank you. And thank you all for being on this call. I think this was the most heartfelt one we've had so far. And if people still have questions, you can definitely get more information to you. We will have all these links in case you missed it, because we have the transcript. And we'll make sure we put this on the YouTube as well as the social website. And thank you all. Please be well. Please be safe. And know that we have your back. And this is our community, and we will continue to be safe. All right, y'all. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tremendous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Share the flyer. Tell your friends for the next one. Bring your children.
Yeah.
Good night.